Maharaj Yudhishthira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Dev and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers.
Text 4. Kamam vavarshya parjanya sarvakama dugamahi sisuchu sma vrajana gava papayasodaswatir muda.
During the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, the clouds showered all the water that the people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk.
Text 5. Nadaha samruddha giraya swanaspati viruddha falanti aushadaya sarva kamam anavruta tasya vai.
The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion.
Text 6. Nadayo vyadaya klesha daiva bhutatma hetava ajata satrava abhavan jantu nam rajni karhichit.
Because of the king having no enemy, the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat or cold.
Text 7. Ushitva hastinapure masan katipayan hari shrihidam cha vishokaya swasuscha priya kamyaya.
Sri Hari, Lord Sri Krishna, resided at Hastinapur for a few months to pacify his relatives and please his own sister Subhadra.
Text 8. Amantra chabhyunujanata parisvajaya vivadyatam aroha ratham kashit parishvakto abhivadita.
Afterwards, when the Lord asked permission to depart and the king gave it, the Lord offered his respects to Maharaj Yudhishthira by bowing down at his feet, and the king embraced him. After this, the Lord, being embraced by others and receiving their obeisances, got into his chariot.
Text 9 and 10. Subhadra Draupadi Kunti Virata Tanaya Tatha Gandhari Dhritarashtrasya Yuyutsur Gautamo Yamo Brukodarasya Thomasya Striyo Matsya Sutadaya Nasehire vimuhyanto viraham saranga Dhanvana.
At that time, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsu, Kripacharya, Nakul, Sahadev, Bhimasen, Dhaumya, and Satyavati all nearly fainted because it was impossible for them to bear separation from Lord Krishna.
Text 11 and 12. Satsangan mukta dusango hatum notsahata buddha kirtaya manam yasho yasya sakrut akarnya rochanam tasmin nyasta diya partha saharan viraham katham darshana sparsha samlapa sayanasana bhojanaihi.
The intelligent who have understood the Supreme Lord in association with pure devotees and have become freed from bad materialistic association can never avoid hearing the glories of the Lord, even though they have heard them only once. How then could the Pandavas tolerate his separation? For they had been intimately associated with his person, seeing him face to face, touching him, conversing with him, and sleeping, sitting, and dining with him.
Text 13. Sarve te nimisher akshaish tama anudruta chetasa vikashanta sneha sambandha vichelastatra tatraha.
All their hearts were melting for him on the pot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity.
Text 14. Nyarundana udgalad bashpam auta kanthya devaki sute niryati agaran no badram iti shyad bandhava striya.
The female relatives, whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Krishna, came out of the palace. They could stop their tears only with great difficulty. They feared the tears would cause misfortune at the time of departure.
Text 15. Mrudanga sankha bhairyascha vina panava gomukha dunduri anka gantadya nedur dundubhyastatha.
While the Lord was departing from the palace of Hastinapur, different types of drums like the mridanga, dhola, nagra, danduri, and dandubi, and flutes of different types, the veena, gomukha, and bheri, all sounded together to show him honor.
Text 16. Prasada sikhararuda kuru naryo didakrushaya vavrushu kusumai krishnam prema vrida smite kshanaha.
Out of a loving desire to see the Lord, the royal ladies of the Kurus got up on top of the palace and, smiling with affection and shyness, they showered flowers upon the Lord.
Text 17. Sitatapatram jagraha muktadam vibhushitam ratna dandam gudakesha priyatmasyaha.
At that time, Arjun, the great warrior and conqueror of sleep, who is the intimate friend of the most beloved Supreme Lord, took up an umbrella which had a handle of jewels and was embroidered with lace and pearls.
Text 18. Uddhava satyakishchaiva vyajena paramadbhute vikiryamana kusumai reje madhupati pati.
Uddhava and Satyaki began to fan the Lord with decorated fans, and the Lord, as the master of Madhu, seated on scattered flowers, commanded them along the road. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Hare
But
Krishna.
give me
Thank you
from
so much.
six.
Yeah,
Hare
excellent.
Krishna.
So, yes, Maya Mataji, very nice, very, very confident on English, beautifully recited.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Hare
you so
Krishna.
much. Thank you.
Thank you. And Krishnamani Mataji, very nice Sanskrit. Thank you. Yeah, I could see you were doing, working hard to pay attention to the diacritics, and you were getting it quite good. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
There is a lot to improve, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, okay, so let me just, I'm going to share the text and the purpose for today just from here. Let me just change the view. So today we are going to read 4, 5, and 6 texts today. So, as usual, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Next, Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 10, entitled Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwaraka. And this is text 4. Kamam varsha parjanya sarva kama dukha mahi Kishi chusma brajan gavaha payasodasvamati muda. We'll do word for word as well. Kamam, everything needed. Vavarsha was showered. Parjanya, rains. Sarva, everything. Kama, necessities. Yuga, producer. Mahi, the land. Sisichusma, moistened. Rajan, pasturing grounds. Gavaha, the cows. Payasa, Udasvati, due to swollen milk bags. Muda, because of joyful attitude. Translation and purport. So I'll do the translation and the purport. We can just take in turns with different paragraphs. So the translation goes: during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag, the cheerful attitude, a cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. So purport, if you can just, anybody can unmute and read this.
And I think,
Yeah, go. Yes, go ahead.
the basic principle of economic development is centered on land and cows. The necessities of human society are food, grains, fruits, milk, minerals, clothing, wood, etc. One requires all these items to fulfill the material needs of the body. Certainly, one does not require flesh and fish or iron tools and machinery. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, all over the world there were regulated rainfalls. Rainfalls are not in the control of the human being. The heavenly king Indradev is the controller of rains, and he is the servant of the Lord. When the Lord is obeyed by the king and the people under the king's administration, there are regulated rains from the horizon, and these rains are the causes of all varieties of production on the land. Not only do regulated rains help ample production of grains and fruits, but when they combine with astronomical influences, there is ample production of valuable stones and pearls. Grains and vegetables can sumptuously feed a man and animals, and a fatty cow delivers enough milk to supply a man sumptuously with vigor and vitality. If there is enough milk, enough grain, enough fruit, enough cotton, enough silk, and enough jewels, then why do the people need cinemas, houses of prostitution, slaughterhouses, etc.? What is the need of an artificial luxurious life of cinema, cars, radio, flash, and hotels? Has this civilization produced anything but quarreling individually and nationally? Has this civilization enhanced the cause of equality and fraternity by sending thousands of men into a hellish factory and the war fields at the whim of a particular man? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So next paragraph, somebody else please.
Can I try, Mukunda?
Yes, please, Parika Mataji.
Hare Krishna. It is said here that the cows used to moisten the pasturing land with milk because their milk bags were fatty and the animals were joyful. Do they not require therefore proper protection for a joyful life by being fed with a sufficient quantity of grass in the field? Why should man kill cows for their selfish purpose? Why should man not be satisfied with grains, fruits, milk, which combined together can produce hundreds and thousands of palatable dishes? Why are the slaughterhouses all over the world to kill innocent animals? Maharaja Parikshit, grandson of Maharaja Yudhishthira, while touring the vast kingdom, saw a black man attempting to kill a cow. The king at once arrested the butcher and chastised him sufficiently. Should not a king or arrested the butcher and chastise him sufficiently? Should not a king or executive head protect the lives of poor animals who are unable to defend themselves? Is this humanity? Are not the animals or of a citizen also? Then why they're allowed to be butchered in organized slaughterhouse? Are these signs of equality, fraternity, or non-violence?
Thank you very much, Parika Mataji. And the last two paragraphs together, who was there, please?
Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
Therefore, in contrast with the modern, advanced civilized form of government, an autocracy like Maharaj Yudhishthira's is by far superior to a so-called democracy in which animals are killed and a man less than an animal is allowed to cast votes for another less than animal man. We are all creatures of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Lord himself is the seed-giving father and material nature is the mother of all living beings in all shapes. Thus, Mother Material Nature has enough foodstuff both for animals and for men, by the grace of the Father Almighty Sri Krishna. The human being is the elder brother of all other living beings. He is endowed with intelligence more powerful than animals for realizing the course of nature and the indications of the Almighty Father. Human civilization should depend on the production of material nature without artificially attempting economic development to turn the world into a chaos of artificial greed and power only for the purpose of artificial luxuries and sense gratification. This is but the life of dogs and hogs. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mataji. Thank you. So we just go to the next verse. This is 5. Nadya Samudra Giraya Savanaspati Viruddha Phalantya Sarva Kamam Anvritru Tasyavai. Nadia, rivers, Samudra, oceans, Giraya, hills and mountains, Savanaspati, vegetables, Viruddha, creepers, Phalanti, active, Oshadaya, drugs, Sarvaha, all, Kamam, necessities, Anvritu, seasonal, Tasya, for the king, Vai, certainly. Translation in Prabhupada Ki Jai. The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season pay their tax quota to the king in profusion. So I believe this is just one big paragraph. Yeah. So yeah, somebody can just take the whole paragraph.
Can I read, please?
Yes, please, Puja Mataji.
Since Maharaja Yudhishthira was under the protection of the Ajita, the infallible Lord, as above mentioned, the properties of the Lord, namely the rivers, oceans, hills, forests, etc., were all pleased, and they used to supply their respective quota of taxes to the king. The secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. Without his sanction, nothing can be possible. To make economical development by her own endeavors on the strength of tools and machinery is not all. The sanction of the Supreme Lord must be there. Otherwise, despite all instrumental arrangements, everything will be unsuccessful. The ultimate cause of success is the Deva, the Supreme. Kings like Maharaja Yudhishthira knew perfectly well that the king is the agent of the Supreme Lord to look after the welfare of the mass of people. Actually, the state belongs to the Supreme Lord. The rivers, oceans, forests, hills, drugs, etc. are not creations of man. They are all creations of the Supreme Lord, and the living being is allowed to make use of the property of the Lord for the service of the Lord. Today's slogan is that everything is for the people, and therefore the government is for the people and by the people. But to produce a new species of humanity at the present moment on the basis of God consciousness and perfection of human life, the ideology of godly communism, the world has to again follow in the footsteps of kings like Maharaja Yudhishthira or Parikshit. There is enough of everything by the will of the Lord, and we can make proper use of things to live comfortably without enmity between man and man, or man and animal, or man and nature. The control of the Lord is everywhere, and if the Lord is pleased, every part of nature will be pleased. The river will flow profusely to fertilize the land. The oceans will supply sufficient quantities of minerals, pearls and jewels. The forest will supply sufficient wood, drugs, and vegetables, and the seasonal changes will effectively help produce fruits and flowers in profuse quantity. The artificial way of living, depending on factories and tools, can render so-called happiness only to a limited number at the cost of millions. Since the energy of the mass of the people is engaged in factory production, the natural products are being hampered, and for this, the mass is unhappy. Without being educated properly, the mass of people are following in the footsteps of the vested interests by exploiting natural reserves, and therefore there is acute competition between individual and individual and nation and nation. There is no control by the trained agent of the Lord. We must look into the defects of modern civilization by comparison here, and should follow in the footsteps of Maharaja Yudhishthira to cleanse man and wipe out anachronisms. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Kusama. That's very nice. Last verse for today is Nadayo Vyadaya Klesha Daiva Bhutatma Hetavaha Ajata Shatrava Abhavan Jantunam Rajnikarhichit. Never Adaya, anxieties, Vyadaya, diseases, Klesha, trouble due to excessive heat and cold, Daiva Bhuta Atma, all due to the body, the supernatural power, and other living beings, Hetavaha, due to the cause of Ajata Shatro, unto one who has no enemy, Abhavan happened, Jantunam, of the living beings, Rajni, unto the king, Karhichit, at any time. Translation, because of the kings having no enemy, the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat and cold. So this is, again, one paragraph, slightly smaller than before. So somebody can take this through, please.
Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, please, Mama.
To the non-violent, to human beings, and to be a killer or enemy of the poor animals is Satan's philosophy. In this age, there is enmity towards poor animals, and therefore the poor creatures are always anxious. The recreation of the poor animals is being forced on human society, and therefore there is always the strain of cold or hot war between men, individually, collectively, or nationally. At the time of Maharaja Yudhishthira, there was no different nations, although there were different subordinate states. The whole world was united, and the supreme head, being a trained king like Yudhishthira, kept all the inhabitants free from anxiety, disease, and excessive heat and cold. They were not only economically well-to-do, but also physically fit and undisturbed by the supernatural powers, by enmity from the other living beings, and by disturbance of the bodily or mental agonies. There is a proverb in Bengali that a bad king spoils the kingdom and a bad housewife spoils the family. This truth is applicable here also, because the king was pious and obedient to the Lord and sages, because he was not no one's enemy, and because he was a recognized agent of the Lord, and therefore protected by him, all the citizens under the king's protection were, so to speak, directly protected by Lord and his authorized agents. Unless one is pious and recognized by the Lord, he cannot make others happy who are under his care. There is fully cooperation between men and God and men and nature, and this conscious cooperation between men and God and men and nature are exemplified by King Yudhishthira, can bring about happiness, peace, and prosperity in the world. The attitude of exploiting one another, the custom of all day, will only bring misery. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you. Thanks so much. Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Tadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Sadhu Swami Nitinamine Snigdha Cheta Supraneta Vagbinam Cheta Sapidam Prabhupada Gata Prana Nomi Bhakti Charapada Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashapadis Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, right, let's go again, long purpose, so a lot of time is taken, so let's see how far we get. We continue reading chapter 10, Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwaraka. We're just in the beginning of the chapter, so we're just in the first section, which is Kingdom of Maharaj Yudhishthira. We just quickly go through today's verses. We've done the Sanskrit, we'll just do the English just to remind ourselves where we are. So basically, before this, the very first verse of this chapter, Shonak Rishi is asking the question to Sutta Goswami about how did, after the war and everything was finished, how did Yudhishthira Maharaj rule his subjects? Second text, Lord Krishna, being pleased, he is established Maharaj Yudhishthira to the throne. And then the third text yesterday was after the instructions from Lord Krishna and Bhishmadev. Yudhishthira Maharaj ruled over this earth, with full knowledge and with the help of his brothers. But that's where we are. So now, text 4, it says, during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bags and cheerful attitude, the cows used to moisten the grazing grounds with milk. Text 5, the rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion. Paying the tax quota means obviously they produced in abundance. Text 6, because of the kings having no enemies, the living beings were not any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases of excessive heat or cold. So you can see here that if there is, as Prabhupada says also in another purpose, if there is a pious king, then because of his piety, the seasons behave, the demigods are pleased, so they do not create any calamities. We'll discuss a bit more about that in this section later. And because of that, generally people are disease-free and they're happy. So as usual, we take some of the main points from the purport. So this is the very beginning of the purport for the fourth text, where Prabhupada said, and the theme for all three, you can see the theme for all three verses, and this is why they've been put together. And Prabhupada in the purport basically is attacking modern civilization, and in particularly attacking animal killing. And every purport actually is actually more or less focusing on that. So the basic principle of economic development is centered on land and cows. So as we know, this was the Vedic culture, where there was no big factories. Everything was even in living memory, I suppose. You think going back to sort of the early part of this century. I would say living memory, most of them were not there, but in 30s, 40s, my father used to speak about how, they used to just basically have each person in the village or town would have his own land. He would grow his crops, and he would sort of provide his family with food. And whatever was excess, he would either sell or barter with somebody else to get clothes or whatever else they needed in the house. So it was very, very simple living, and everybody was happy. There was no stress. But obviously, we have created the modern sort of civilization, science and technology, but it's come with its own share of problems. So, just for those who don't know, we actually within ISKCON, the GBC, have a Ministry of Cow Protection and Agriculture. This was, as it says on the screen here, established in 1998, and there are farms all over the world, caring for cows. Yeah, the second project, there's over 100 farms and goshalas around the globe. And there's so many cows being looked after. So ISKCON is very much in favor of cow protection. The in the Bhagavatam, where Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, where he talks about different qualities and work for in the Varnashram system. There's 1843, I believe, where it says the occupation for the Vaishyas. Krishi Go Raksha Vanijam. Karma Vaishya Karma Sabhavajam. Krishi means farming, Go Raksha means cow protection, and trade. In those days it was bartering rather than trade, really. So this is what the Vaishyas were doing, and taking care of the cows, and such an important function that Vaishyas were performing there. So in the Varnashram system, as it was working perfectly. And as we all know, Srila Prabhupada, one time towards the end of his life, when he was lamenting, there's so much more to do. And Bhakti Maharaj was saying to us that he told him, Prabhupada, you shouldn't worry, you should please just take it easy because you've done so much. Nobody could have done what you have done so far. And he says, no, this is just half of what I wanted to do. The other half was to establish Varnashram system, at least within these ISKCON centers. That was his plan. And in those days, there was a lot of things on farm communities. But you can see it's very, very difficult to do that. So the head of this ISKCON Ministry for Cow Protection is a devotee called Kalakanta Prabhu. Kalakanta Prabhu. And Kalakanta Prabhu was here about 4 or 5 years ago, and he did a series of lectures about cow protection. Very, very active. My Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Charuswami Maharaj himself was very much in favor of cow protection. Towards the end, one of the last 1 or 2 lectures I heard from him, he was speaking about this. He was talking about there's so much land in America, and he was looking for a project where he could get a large piece of land, and he was going to invite farmers all over the country to send their cows once they stop giving milk. Instead of sending them to the slaughterhouses, you send them to us and we will look after them. That was his movement. Obviously, they never materialized. Cow protection is a very, very important part of human civilization. Prabhupada, so it is said, Prabhupada then goes on to say, it is said that the cows, in the purport here of saying, text 4, it is said that the cows used to moisten the pasturing land with milk because their milk bags were fatty and the animals were joyful. So here in this slide, you can see there's a photograph of this cow in the early days, where they had they got some cows in New Vrindavan. The Prabhupada says here, in New Vrindavan, we are keeping cows. That is an example. And the cows are giving milk, delivering the milk double than other farmers. And this is a fact, because the cows are so nicely looked after, they were giving so much more milk, and other farmers, neighboring farmers, were really surprised. How are you able to get so much milk from your cows? Prabhupada explains why. Because the cows know that these people will not kill me. They are not in anxiety. Suppose you're engaged in some work, and if you know that after 7 days I will be killed, can you do the work nicely? No. Similarly, the cows know in the Western countries that these people are giving me nice grain and grass, but after all, they will kill me. So they're not happy. So this is, obviously quite true, right? And when the animals are happy, the cows are happy, they will produce more milk. So then the purport continues. Should not a king or executive head protect the lives of poor animals who are unable to defend themselves? Is this humanity? Are not the animals of the country citizens also? See, praja means the living being who's taken birth in a particular country, or in this country, in this case, particular world. So a living being doesn't only mean human being. Living entity is every living entity. So in that sense, a living entity taken birth in a particular land as a cow or a dog or whatever is also a citizen. The Prabhupada continues in the purport, we are all creatures of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Lord himself is a seed-giving father, and material nature is the mother of living beings in all shapes. So in 14.4, as you all know, this famous verse, Sarva yonishu konteya murtaya sambhavantiya tasham brahma mahat yonir aham bija pratita. It is to be understood that all species of life, also Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. Still on the purport for text 4, Prabhupada's talking about Maharaj Parikshit, grandson of Maharaj Yudhishthira, while touring his vast kingdom, saw a black man attempting to kill a cow. The king at once arrested the butcher and chastised him sufficiently. Should not a king or executive head protect the lives of poor animals who are unable to defend themselves? Is this humanity? Are not animals? I think some of this purport took the previous slide as well. But here you can see this was Yudhishthira chastising Kali. We know the past time where this Kali was about to enter, and when Maharaj Yudhishthira saw him, and you can see the cow, he's already cut 3 legs of the cow. The cow is only on 1 leg. The bull is standing behind the cow. Cow is just standing on 1 leg at the time. And that leg, which leg is remaining? Anybody knows?
Truthfulness.
Truthfulness, exactly. And the 3 which are cut are?
Austerity, mercy.
Dharma?
Dharma, no, it's not dharma. It's 1 second.
Austerity, mercy.
Mercy and
Cleanliness?
Cleanliness.
very nice. That's correct. Exactly. So, and we know nowadays even truthfulness is hardly there. So you can see the progress of Kali. But and then Kali was offered 3 places to stay in. What were the 3 places?
Gold,
Grains.
grains,
Was it alcohol? Gambling.
Alcohol, yeah, alcohol, gambling.
And
Where
gambling,
there is
prostitution,
meat
and
eating,
gold.
gambling, and illicit sex.
Yeah, wherever the animals were. But then at the time, the personification of Kali, he said, but Maharaj, in your kingdom, there is no place like that. Because, just imagine, this is just the beginning of Kali. So these things are not there very much. In fact, hardly there. So Kali said, where do I go? Because in your kingdom, which was the complete earth, as we saw, I think yesterday, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu was saying that Yudhishthira Maharaj was ruling not just the land, but also the seas. So there were no slaughterhouses, there were no gambling places, whatever. So where do you go? And then he was given the 4th place, which was
Gold.
Accumulation of gold.
Accumulation of gold, and especially accumulation of gold for sense gratification. That's where you can go and stay. So yes, nice pastime there. And then moving on to the next purport, text 5. Prabhupada says in that purport, since Maharaj Yudhishthira was under the protection of the Ajita. Ajita means, here it says infallible Lord. Ajita means one who cannot be conquered. As above mentioned, the properties of the Lord, namely the rivers, oceans, hills, forests, etc., were all pleased, and they used to supply their respective quota of taxes to the king. So the whole of nature is acting under the instruction of the Supreme Lord. So the Lord has set the whole thing in motion. The Lord has set the laws. The Lord has also set the modes of nature, and the system of karma is also set by the Lord. So the actions and reactions will happen automatically. It's not that Lord is giving it to us. Lord has set the system, but if we go against the system, then we will suffer. If you go along with the system, we will survive. So There's a text in the Bhagavad Gita, text 9.10, which talks about how the material nature is acting under the Lord. Anybody know this verse? Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sa characharam hetu nanena kontaya jagat viparivartate. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rules, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. The whole system mechanism is set up by the Lord, and in the beginning of not the beginning, actually we'll come to that in the second and third cantos, where the creation will be explained, how the Supreme Lord created the ingredients first, and then from there Brahmaji then created the universes, and then ultimately the living entities entered there. So the whole system was set up by the Lord, and then so we're all living under the modes, and then whatever we are doing, our activities are making us suffer or prosper. Prabhupada says in that purport, the secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. Without his action, nothing can be possible. So in one of the purports today, Prabhupada also says that even the manufacturing and all the modern things that are going on, they can only happen due to the sanction of the Lord. Otherwise, they cannot. So the people who do not know this, they are taking the credit themselves, and this is why they would then suffer. In remaining on the fifth purport of the fifth text, but to produce a new species of humanity at the present moment on the basis of God consciousness and perfection of human life, the ideology of God communism, the world has to again follow in the footsteps of things like Maharaj Yudhishthira or Parikshit. But this is what I was saying earlier. This shows the dream of Prabhupada, that people would go this God communism. So part of this would be the Varnashram system, right? Where people would then act in the proper way according to the rules of the Shastra. And that way we would create very, very happy societies in the world. So based on this, ISKCON was set up when Prabhupada registered ISKCON in 1966 in New York. He actually in the incorporation document, there were 7 purposes mentioned, and these purposes are there in the document, and they're also on the net. So the first purpose was to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, and to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. So this is the very first purpose. So you can see why, if the whole world became Krishna conscious, then you can see that a lot of the issues that we are seeing now, even the natural disasters. First of all, the harmony will be there in society, and there will be not so many wars because people will be thinking Krishna consciously rather than selfishly. So that automatically would subside. Then, because people are going to work in the godly manner, the demigod will be happy. So there will be very, very few natural disasters. So really, this is the recipe for success. The second is to propagate a consciousness of Krishna as he revealed in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, to bring the members of society together with each other and nearer to Krishna, and thus to develop the idea within the members and humanity at large that each soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, if everybody understood this last sentence, that each part and parcel, that each soul is part and parcel of Supreme Lord, then nobody would want to kill animals, because they would realize that they are literally, as Prabhupada said, one of the purports, we are elder brothers. So if we wouldn't want to kill our younger brothers, that obviously the intelligence needs to be there. To teach and encourage the Sankirtan movement congregation chanting of the holy name of God, and to reveal the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to erect for the members and the society at large a holy place of transcendental pastimes dedicated to the personality of Godhead, so setting up temples, which he did, as we know, within a short span of 11 years, from 1966 to 1977, when he left this world. Srila Prabhupada set up 108 temples and centers all over the world. Imagine that he went and set up temples and centers in places where he didn't even know the language. That was the power that the Lord had invested in him. Next one, to bring the members closer together for the purpose of teaching a simple and more natural way of life. So again, what we're talking about, living off the land rather than big machinery and big factories. And the seventh purpose is with a view towards achieving the aforementioned purposes, to publish and distribute periodicals, magazines, books, and other writings. So very, very, you can see, amazing forward thinking Prabhupada had at that time. And moving on to the purport for the last text, which is 6. The whole world was united, and the supreme head, being a trained king like Yudhishthira, kept all the inhabitants free from anxiety, diseases, and excessive heat and cold. So, as I was saying earlier, if we satisfied demigods, then there will not be excessive heat, cold, and everything. In fact, I read somewhere recently that in those days, in the days of Yudhishthira Maharaj, even in the early days, in the Satyug time, for example, it is said that rain only came in the night. Imagine how convenient that would be, right? You never had to check the weather. You know that it's never going to rain in the daytime, so you can plan your day, you can plan to go out for your harinam or your picnics or whatever we do without worrying about the rain. We don't have to buy umbrellas because it would only rain at night. This is how well nature cooperated with the living beings, because of sort of pious living of the living entities. So for us to satisfy the demigods, what do we do? Any ideas?
Yagna Sankirtana prior.
Exactly. Absolutely. So we engage in the congregation chanting of the holy names. That's one. And also in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam, text 31:14, it says that if we satisfy Krishna, satisfy the Supreme Lord, then automatically all the demigods are satisfied. Anybody know this verse? Bhakti Vaibhav students? Yatha tarormula nishechanena ripyanti tatskanda bhujo bhasaka pranopaharacha yathendriyanam tathaiva sarvahanam achyuteja. As pouring water on the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else, and as supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses and limbs of the body, simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality. So that's all we need to do, just become, by being a devotee of Lord Krishna, the demigods are satisfied, as it was the case in the case of Yudhishthira Maharaj, because Yudhishthira Maharaj was such a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna. All the demigods cooperated with all of his kingdom. Prabhupada ends that purport saying, the attitude of exploiting one another, which is the custom of the day, will bring only misery. So it says, because the king was pious, I think I already explained it, because the king was pious and obedient to the Lord and sages, because he was no one's enemy, he was no one's enemy, and because he was a recognized agent of the Lord and therefore protected by him, all the citizens under the king's protection were, so to speak, directly protected by the Lord and his authorized agents. Hare Krishna. So I will stop here and I'll invite any realizations, questions, corrections, please. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mukunda, Hare Prabhu, such a wonderful class. It's so purifying. When we hear Bhagavatam, it's just you want to do like that. You want to follow the instruction. And if we have everybody around us, we speak together, definitely there will be a consciousness, the higher consciousness. And the more and more we discuss about Srimad Bhagavatam and hear Srimad Bhagavatam, definitely our own consciousness will elevate. And also if we speak to other people about the Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm sure we will help to elevate the consciousness of everybody. And what Srila Prabhupada has given us is beyond our imagination. I mean, such a wonderful, I mean, the animal protection is so important. And I remember when I was young, I mean, we had a lot of land. We had 35 acres of land, and all our, whole year milk and every grain is to come. We would not keep it to ourselves. We would give it to the neighbors. We would give it to the temple. And as soon as things comes, my father said, give this much to these people, and it was like that. And then as we are growing up, and then the communist government came, and then we couldn't hold that land anymore. So it has to be sold. So those days were so peaceful. We didn't need so much money. This land was providing us everything. So it was like that in Yudhishthira Maharaj's time. Yeah. It's so nice to hear from Srimad Bhagavatam. At the moment also there is a group who has the animal protection. They also do a lot. They also, I received something, and that's why I like to donate there. They give you all the information. They are kind of going to the parliament, stop animal killing. They're trying their best also. I mean, I'm sure people, they are also vegetarian, and they also don't eat animal, and they're also trying their best, like as ISKCON. And so there are a lot of people out there now. I'm sure people.
We need more activity like that, really. We need to, one of the biggest, what would I call it, where is people, when you think about, especially if you look at the British, they love their animals, don't they? Mm. They love their cats, they love their dogs, they will have rabbits as their pets and all that, right? So all that's amazing. They have so much love, and they will be, if there was any cruelty to animals, they will be out there protesting about cruelty to animals. And yet the hypocrisy, the sheer hypocrisy is that they will happily have, lamb and beef on the plates.
Yes.
I can never understand that. I can never understand that. They are actually kind people, but somehow they've got this thing in their head that yes, certain animals are to protect, others are to kill. I just cannot understand that logic.
Yeah, there's so much animal protection. I mean, they see the dog. There's so many things they do. But how they kill the cows, I just don't understand.
Yeah. I remember a few years ago there was some farm somewhere in the West Country where some farmer had neglected the animals. It was, I think, cows, not cows, sorry, it was horses. And when somebody discovered the horses, they hadn't been fed for days, and they were malnutritioned, and they were really sick and everything. And there was a big hoo-ha about it, about cruelty to the animals, and there was, it was taken to court and everything. But you guys are sending so many innocent cows to the slaughterhouse without even a second thought.
It's very difficult to understand this mentality.
Yeah. Absolutely difficult to understand what's going on there.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Parika Mate. Thank you for sharing that. I was saying in living memory, we know that people were living off the land. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mr. Vani Mataji.
Yes, that's such a wonderful purport. Like, as it is, we didn't live in the farm, but even if we live in the countryside in India, there's small villages, the life was so peaceful and happy. Everybody lives in harmony. And in, yeah, they were farmers and things. So yeah, if the society go back to that, I think it'd be much, much easier. With this modern technology is bringing more facilities, but then there is a lot of, unhappiness and anxiety and all these things. So yeah, the olden times, that people were more happy and more peaceful.
Totally. Even now, whenever I go, whenever we travel to India, then if we're going by bus from one town to another, we inevitably we pass some small villages. And I'm always fascinated when I look at those children, right? Some of them haven't even got a shirt on. They've got torn clothes, or they're barefoot, and they're running around with little sticks and stones. They're playing, but they look so happy. They're so contented, right? And look at our children here, like stressed with their homework and stressed with this and stressed with that, and so much it's like chalk and cheese.
Here, the children, I can see, because they get everything, they become so selfish. They're more because whatever they want, they get it. So they haven't seen any struggle or anything. But in India, everybody's satisfied. And the food, there is no wastage of food, because very little, even if you get something, then you have to share it out. So there is no waste.
Exactly.
And when you see, even at the temple, when you see the waste of prasadam, your heart just sinks, because it said, yes, because you're getting free, then and even at home, I've seen people, like not eaten, okay, today's food, tomorrow, it goes into the, the bin. I said, oh, so much of, and it's sinful as well to waste prasadam, because like if it's clean, and if you're giving out to somebody, or even the plants or animals, then they will eat prasadam and survive. But going in the bin, it's not so good.
Absolutely. Sumadhur Radhika Mataji, thank you for a comment, thank you for encouragement. Okay, so devotees, I was more or less quite self-explanatory this purpose. So look forward to seeing you next week. Panchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for wonderful class.
Thank you
Hare
for very
Krishna,
good
Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Excellent class.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for a wonderful class. Just a very small, you inadvertently said Yudhishthir Maharaj was punishing Kali. Actually, so of course, Parikshit.
Oh, no, it was Parikshit, of course, yes, thank you.
I know you know anyway, but it was inadvertent.
Thank you. It happens, because your mind's sort of trying to process so many things as you're speaking. But no, thank you for pointing it out. Yeah, I'll be more careful next time.
No, true.
At least I know that some of you are listening.
Absolutely. There's the other part of the problem with modern world is that because meat is packaged, people, out of sight, out of mind. They don't really understand and know the suffering these animals have been through. If one person has to go to a slaughterhouse, they will realize, and I think 99% of people that actually haven't ever been, that go, can't stomach it again.
Yes.
I think that I was just asking my son. There was a film some years ago about a piglet being adopted by a child or something, and that piglet was made into a pet at home, and then they couldn't kill it because it made it into a pet. That film apparently created such a what's the word? Momentum amongst children. They wouldn't eat pork.
Wow.
During that period of time. Of course, these things don't last because, so commercialization and parents and pressure. But just goes to show how a young mind can be influenced so quickly in the right way if they fed that. If there's an attachment that's created to what's on your table by virtue of creating a fond tie, then you won't not be able to eat it. But because there's no attachment, because it's packaged and delivered to them and they've never seen the other side of it, it just becomes a consumer world with just all the nonsense that goes on as a result. So.
Totally. There was a saying there, isn't it? If slaughterhouses had glass walls,
yeah, absolutely,
the whole country would be vegetarians.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for a wonderful class, Prabhu.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for sharing, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Okay, Hare Krishna, everybody. See you next week.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.